even designers who they've made their whole career showing pictures like your cabinet will look like this, your window will look like this, and they, with their storytelling, they can weave a picture and most of their clients will be on board and be able to see it with a plan. But I come in when they just know their client is not seeing it, is having trouble visualizing it, or they want to do maybe a big change and the husband's not on board.
Welcome to the Interior Design Her podcast, real-world business education for interior designers. In today's podcast, I'm chatting with interior designer and 3D rendering artist Kate Cook. If you've ever thought about incorporating 3D renders into your interior design practice, you're going to love today's podcast.
And there's a lot of artists in my family. My mom was an interior designer for high-end hospitality hotels.
Right.
So I think when I first saw people at work with markers on their desk, I got excited about rendering.
Oh, wow.
So yes, she did Beverly Wilshire and she worked with Hyatt and all these things that I was exposed to. And I saw some computer render, but it was only the top of the top big time projects would invest in that. And then I was an interior designer for restaurants for many years, and I got to be in charge of commissioning or downloading or uploading, however you say it, onboarding the projects to the render artist. And they're using markers and paint and airbrush. And I mean, this was a long time ago where we would have to drive the samples to the guy's studio, and if it right or the color was off, if it was really bad, we'd do an overlay. So I feel kind of the way how I've been on the other side, getting renderings of my projects and trying to tell them what it's going to be and how these finishes relate in the space, and of course the plans and everything. And and I was probably a little jealous of the render artists that they get to sit there and do a drawing of these beautiful finishes that we've, in the furnishings and everything for all the restaurants. So yeah. And the other great part, the render artists, since they're at the beginning of the dreaming of the projects, or even before the designer gets the project, I was like, hey, they got that project that my boss didn't get. They still got the project, because they're at the inception and the, for the presentation. Yeah, I just grew up in interior design and I tried my hand at sales. Mm-hmm. No, not so great. Like I would make friends more than sales. It'd be real personable. And from assisting my mom, I really liked the role, and also being a junior designer on a team, really like assisting, being in that supportive role. And so far, my clients have really thought that I get into their head and show what they were dreaming of. Like before she knew it, she had a kind of a video walkthrough of what her plan looked like. And so the way how it really came about was silly that before the pandemic and everything, in 2019, I started working remotely and I dove into this virtual world working for Modsy. And so if you don't remember, there were remote homeowners would buy a package and get a rendering and furnished, and a sales deal to furnish everything that's in the design.
Yep.
So yeah, I got to dive in, learn about Zoom meetings, and they're like, just make such and so forth on Canva. And I didn't know what Canva was back then. And so after that ended, one of my coworkers knew about the e-design tribe. So ever since then, I've been learning, and I've done a few design work with it, and mainly assisting and just serving interior design professionals. Like I just, I really communicate their unique design solutions for their customers' exact space.
Right.
And it helps bridge the gap because when the customer or the clients of my clients, they can't visualize all the time the 2D or what the spatial relations is going to be.
Right. Right. So you're saying your interior design clients or your interior designer clients have problems visualizing
No, their
the
client.
home? Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah, and it's
that's me 100%. Like being able, like when I would listen to my wife talk to her clients, and I was always struck by, she would be describing something and I'd be like, okay, it makes sense to me now. And I'm like, that's a talent. So you being able to do that is 100% a superpower.
mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
And being in so many design projects and like just always seeking out and redesigning every place I see. And it's just a second nature.
Right. So when did you start your business then? Hang out your shingle, just you.
Well, I think it was about uh like 3 years ago, or
Mhm.
I've had a few clients. So when I really first, before even Modsy, is I was doing some hand sketches when my daughter was really young and I was in a neighborhood. I found a designer and showed her my portfolio and she liked the sketches. So in an effort to get her perspective and all the sizes right, I made a computer underlay and then proceeded to do sketches for 10 years for her, where it has all the little details and nail heads and um, like stuff where it'd be really hard to find the exact model, but I would just sketch it on, and I
Hmm.
didn't even know about finding models or rendering. I was just using the machine to get my perspective right, to be
Right.
honest, because, um, drawing is another talent altogether, freehand. I was more of a tracer, but it worked.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder almost that skill set of being able to do the hand drawings. If that kind of like how vinyl has come back in the music industry, if that will eventually come back, that people will see value in that.
Oh, there's a lot of value in that, because if you could have a hand sketch while you're maybe in a meeting, or even you're harnessing somebody's imagination and they're filling in the blanks, and also you're maybe like sculpting the use or the shape, like kind of the shapes in the space,
Right.
and somebody can visualize it, and then you get the dialogue going, and then the design is enhanced. Um, but I like also, I offer different service where you could start off with a wireframe, and because the design's always evolving, and sometimes you might need to figure out the spatial relationship before you know exactly what throw pillow fabrics, such and so, little details. And when it's my Doma designer, because I usually use my Doma visualizer, when they could take the plan
Mhm.
or take my 3D and use it to finish their ideas and their thoughts and seeing things from different directions. And even after the project is completed, um, it always evolves. So if they have the file, they could like show the new wallpaper and make a new printout, or they can continue to use
Right.
the rendering and
Yeah. Yeah.
elevations. And
And that would that also allow you to kind of enter that designer's project earlier on, as opposed to just at the end when everything is kind of done and now you're just producing this beautiful 3D render where it looks amazing. But if you've given them that wire draw uh, product
Mhm.
first, you're in there earlier in the project and you kind of become a team member.
Yes, yes. Sometimes I have helped work out some space plannings, and where I'm really in the process, as the designer's working, and it's really fun for and effective to have somebody come in and be a second set of eyes, um, maybe I'll see something doing the drawings and I'll say, hey, you had wall sconces, like, and remember to add that to the budget early on, like catch other things. It's great to
Oh,
have
wow.
somebody to bounce it off of. And I've done specs, I've done presentations, I've been on both sides of the desk. So it really works out well. I've have and another reason why outsourcing can be really great is these designers projects last a really long time. And the presentation is just like the tip of this iceberg. And then
Right.
there's so much more. So why would they want to keep up the monthly expense of keeping the technology up to date, or having even a staff? Um, but on the other hand, if you've had a project and you had the investment of a rendering and you saw how helpful it was and how much the clients could see their space ahead of time and really be gun
Mhm.
ho. And then you see that you're using it with your subcontractors, showing them details about the tile placements, and it just goes on, and you could use it for social media. So
For all of
it's an
that stuff.
investment. Yeah.
Yeah. In preparation for our chat, I spoke with a handful of designer friends who some already do their own 3D renders, some who farm it out to someone like you, and some who've never done it. And
Hmm.
I found it interesting on that asset. Say, so why are you not doing 3D renders? And the cost was complaint number or concern number one.
Right.
And so they're like, well, and I can't do it myself. I went to design school 15 years ago. I never learned how to do this. I do all these other things well, but I don't do this. And then I would say, well, why don't you hire somebody who does have these skills? And they're like, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. And
Hmm.
I tried arguing, and I wanted to ask you this question: is if I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars to do all of this for me, it's not like it's going in as a budget line to the homeowner eventually, and like it could almost be a profit center. I'm not saying mark up what I'm paying you exponentially, but like there's value to what you do, and the designer should be able to sell that to the homeowner client.
Definitely.
So I'm curious, when you have a first time client, someone who hasn't done 3D renders, and they come to you, what is that like for them and for you?
Mm, well, I think they're wondering how the file will be shared and some of the nitty-gritty details. And then like what will they get in the end? What's the deliverables? So there's lots of files I could make, every angle in 4K, 8K, panoramic, those fly-through videos that you see on
Yeah.
Instagram that are so beautiful. And so what happens a lot of times is even designers who they've made their whole career showing pictures like your cabinet will look like this, your window will look like this, and with their storytelling, they can weave a picture and most of their clients will be on board and be able to see it with a plan. But I come in when they just know their client is not seeing it, is having trouble visualizing it, or they want to do maybe a big change and the husband's not on board. Like there was like going to change the ceiling from wood to a white tone.
Right.
Sometimes my clients' customers ask for a rendering, and they required a rendering. So even if they didn't, they go through their whole career, there's some instances where they'll call on me. And so that's when outsourcing's so great, because if they're not doing it all the time, and
Right.
also it takes kind of a practice to be able to do it effectively, and have it look not so mechanical, and getting the lighting right. Um, and the sourcing, like sometimes I just don't know how I'm going to find the furniture, and sometimes I get lucky and find the real models for their furnishings, and sometimes we have to use our imagination a little bit, or maybe even make a model depending on how important it is.
Yeah.
But I make the size and the color and everything so it looks like the thing they're specifying, you know.
Right. So say I have a residential firm and I've got a junior designer who has access, or we can get access to the exact same software that you have.
Mm-hmm.
How big a difference is it going to be in terms of final product, time spent, aggravation, all that stuff between having this junior designer try tackling this project or just asking you to do it? How much more efficient are you than someone like that?
Well, I can source and maybe build a few extra things, but I think um, that it comes so second nature with some of the video games that people are raised on, and I don't think it's a problem really. They could be up and running, and you could even start using the wireframes right away if the lighting isn't up to par. And then
Mhm.
every project the junior designer does gets better and better. And there's all kinds of tutorials. Say if you do have Mydoma, they have the best customer service and YouTubes and
Mhm.
transcripts and examples and office hours. So there's really no reason why somebody couldn't learn it. But to call on me, I have some expertise and tricks, and I've been working on the same um, visualizer platform or whatever they call it for since 2020.
Right.
So, or 2021, I don't know. So that's a lot of practice, and also so many different like scenarios I've come across, you know, and they always keep it making it better. We just have version with 2 stories, and I it came right after having a sunken living room that I was challenged with. I was, oh, I wish that project would have been a few months later.
Oh, really? So it's changing that much?
Yeah, you could see 2 stories on it. Like change the transparency of it so you could kind of see what's going on. Where before you'd have to go upstairs, downstairs, or render to see what's happening. Say, like if you had a balcony and you're looking at a chandelier, you couldn't see it when you're downstairs.
Wow.
When you're render, you know,
Right.
until you you know, make the picture. So
Okay. So let's go back again, and I'm that hypothetical interior designer who's maybe I have a client who says, "Yeah, I would like to see a render of this before I make a decision." And you're like, "Oh, well, darn it, I don't do that." I'm not saying this to the homeowner, obviously. And I'm like, "Okay."
right.
So I reach out to you, and I'm not saying it's a rush and you have to drop everything, but what would that process look like from my point of view as the interior designer in terms of time spent, what I have to provide to you, any kind of back and forth? How does that work?
Oh, it varies per project, of course, but what you have to do is present, like do a dry run of your presentation because I need to know everything that's going on, what all your awesome design solutions are so we can showcase them, right? So I like to really make it easy where say in the form, like say they have a whole Google Slides or they have a Pinterest board. So instead of saying, oh, now you have to shove everything into my program, I just receive it in the way that it exists. So I take it in its organic form. I get the plans and the as-built, and I populate a Mydoma file and project binder that they could come to. And they kind of like it because they stopped going from 50 emails and text pictures. And I, so I gather everything. Sometimes I sleuth around and look for extra information. Like, for instance, I found a floor plan from like the builder one time when they didn't have a floor plan, and because I like to research things. And the time spent is just really how organized their items are. If they have it all ready with the say like with the websites and specs, so I know how big and everything is, or what everything sizes, and I do drafts. So that way, the back and forth, I gather up all the back and forth and show it to them at once. And I pause production just for a little bit till I get all the, so that I could go in, because the rendering you get all the lighting just so, and it takes, a little bit extra for some of the bells and whistles that you want your mirrors to show and reflect the right things. So I don't want to go and change one thing, do that 5-minute process. So I do try to be efficient and organized. And sometimes I'll just start building the house or building the room, the space, and they're still designing it.
Right.
So I may just take it as it comes, as they get it, and we always make the deadline somehow.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's a little nerve-wracking part when I haven't really, I'm trying to get everything else right, like what fabrics wear, what the rug looks like, all the other things, and maybe I didn't do the lighting because that's last, and then you could get like a little like, oh, is this gonna be okay? And then you put on more layers and work out everything, and it's like boom, and they're excited, and
Yeah.
it's really, I have really nice results with this. And also like the designs that my designers come up with, it's always a thrill to see what neat new tile they're using or what their solution is for somebody's space. So I
Right.
just, I love just coming in and being a part of their team for a minute. And I brand the renderings a lot of time with their logo because I have a personalization on there. So it looks like it's just from their company if they want it.
If they want it. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I can see why some would want to do that. I mean, for sure. But I mean, I think there's also value in like having you on as a independent yet member of the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some people are kind of proud, like, hey, my artist, like somebody would call me their render artist and promote me on social media and
Yeah,
show my stuff. And it's always mutual. Like I show their things too. But yes, there's all different ways because you can use a line drawing and have it being flexible where the colors are changing and then bring in and get it fine-tuned. Or maybe you have everything ready and we can make a stunning where it looks really lifelike. And it's just such a great service because it's hard to just jump in and remember all the controls and how to move around and where the libraries are when you're doing designing, and that comes with its whole other set of challenges and issues. So it's great to have somebody just pinpoint and do what they, just
do
get
the
it.
thing they're really good at.
Yeah, and they can focus on their business or even take some extra time off, be with their family.
Right. The software itself, I mean, you've been using the Mydoma visualizer for a number of years now, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, when it was eDesign Tribe to begin with.
Right. So how have you seen that changing in terms of complexity, what you can do, and maybe ease of use as well? Like, I'm not sure how the software has changed over the past few years.
Oh, I think it's been evolving where I have so much more control, say like making real-time materials, and like I could get the bumps on the upholstery or the carpet. I can make these materials with my upload, so there's no shortage. Like I could show any real fabric that's in somebody's design. If I get a nice JPEG, and then they have ease of use with the second story thing I sort of talked about. And then there's this other part where we don't venture to too much because it's kind of complex. It's advanced materials and modeling. And you can actually model some things and they're kind of like a SketchUp. But then once you do that, you can only interact with that shape in that like section or that control panel. So then, when you're changing the colors around, you're like, oh, darn, that's in the special place. Click back over there. And there's neat little quirks that we've all make fun of, like the way how you really can't search something in English. I mean, there's just the craziest names for things. They do have image search. So you can put the chair that's in your client's design, take that JPEG, and they'll show you 5 pages of what they think is similar. And they have AI features and all this. And so, yeah, I was in part of the first group to be certified for being the visualizer.
So that was kind of leading into my next question, how you brought up the AI. To this point in interior design industry, AI is still pretty much focused on designers who are using it to create concepts, or homeowners that are creating concepts and bringing those to the designers and saying, this is what I would like. And as I, because of this, I've been playing around with it, and I've been learning how to more effectively prompt AI, whether it's a chatbot or whether it's an image generator. And there is so much. There is just so much. Like, if you just ask what you would think would be a simple prompt to the AI image generator, and it would just come back with some very underwhelming images, or very confusing, or very robotic looking.
Oh, yeah.
But so what I did was I sat down with my group of designers again, and also some photographers who deal exclusively in interior design. So for them, they were giving me, okay, you've got to give them, talk about in the prompt about how you're lighting this scene and all the stuff that you've already mentioned. And I'm curious if you can put on your prediction hat, where you see the software you're using now in a year's time or 5 years' time. Where do you think this could be? I know it's a tough question. Sorry.
Well, I think what it could do, and it already is to a certain extent, is you say you have a floor plan and you label the use of the rooms, kitchen, dining, etc. And then you could put a template and it'll sort of throw stuff down and hope that it fits. But the computer, they really don't know how humans interact with the living spaces. And it takes a talented designer and somebody with intuition and a soul to figure that out, really. But I mean, it can help with some repetitive tasks, maybe, maybe, I don't know, maybe, I think the best use so far that I've got me excited was the modeling, where it's taking the 2D image and making a model. And I've been following, because Jenna Gadusic was with the eDesign Tribe, and now she's all things AI, and I listen to her things. And so if any other questions about that, you should ask her. She's had her head in it for a while. And I mean, some of the solutions or uses, it seems cumbersome to me. Like, here's the language. We need to speak to the computer so the computer understands. And then we're going to trick it and do this. And there's like 5-step process. I'm like, here's the paint colors I picked out with my natural intelligence or something. And the one that I really like, and I think I learned from her podcast, was one that uses more of a stable diffusion. And so if you show it a room and you have a fireplace, a walkway, and tall windows, it'll recognize that when it's dreaming up these crazy things, or they're really theme heavy, because they're finding everything that's ever done such and such boho or whatever, and they find like sort of like the extreme version of it and push that theme, but at least they're knowing where the windows are. And another fun thing is I can use my renderings to fool the computer to think it's the before image. So if it says upload an image of your room, we can have, my designer and I can have an image from her floor plan of a house that's never been built. And then you show it to AI and it thinks it's a real place, because our renderings look so lifelike.
Right.
And I've explored and experimented with where you can go to the patterns of wallpaper and fabrics and tile, and you can visualize it on this rendering.
Right.
And go through it maybe a little quicker than uploading all that stuff and rendering it. So that's a fun use for that.
That does sound, well, yeah. And I mean, the current crop of AI models out there are all based on the large language concept where you feed it all of this data, and that's all fine and good. But if we were to scrape the entire internet for residential interior design, most of what we're going to find is going to be a lot of DIY and a lot of underwhelming things. It's not like they have a crop of interior designers, right, plugging their experience and skill sets into that model, because like you said about picking out the paint color, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason people hire interior designers now, because they have a skill set that the rest of us don't. And unless we're going to train those models with your interior design plan,
that's what you're stumbling on right now, and we better patent this, is that you have a model from the great minds, and then you get a great hive mind from people who are actually in the field, and know, well, yeah, that could be a great thing, where people who see, like, it's like, say AI, where they're coming up with these ideas, and you've used the word underwhelming a couple times. Well, designers, we used to go to the most extravagant, over great things to pull our ideas from. We weren't looking at this watered down facsimile copy of something that was copied. So we'd have art books. I mean, the design firms that I went to, their library was stunning. We would look all throughout the world. If somebody's doing a certain type of restaurant, we dive into whatever that culture is and that cuisine. I mean, some people, they would even go on trips for their design. Like the casino people who did the Venetian, they went there and they soaked it in and took their own sketches and really, experienced it on a human level. Like, instead of what AI probably has, is more that facsimile copy, and the toners run out, and it's so that's just what you put in versus what you get out. One time I used AI, and it just sort of confirmed what my designer already figured out. Like, I took her design and I go, let's see what AI would do for that.
right?
And she liked a few of the treatments, but it almost confirmed she was on the right track already, and she wasn't missing anything. Or I don't even think we showed the client, really, because it was just a sort of a side quest just to see.
Yeah. But more of an assistant than a kind of disruptive technology that's going to take our business away, take our livelihood.
Yeah, I think it's a tool. Like, storytelling is storytelling. Like, think about the people who do movies. They have all these different tools, but they're still telling a story, and they still need the human person and reasons, and making that connection. So, like, our interiors make a connection with the people who live there or use the space. I don't think a computer could do that.
No, I agree. But okay.
On a side note, is I was raised by an interior designer, and then my mom's an interior designer, but my dad is a computer guru, been in computers from the very beginning, and he told me we were going to use computer for our art. And I mean, he told me all kinds of things early on about modems and computers talking to each other, and we're going to use it in our art and our interior design one day. And I said, Dad, you're such a nerd. That's never going to happen. But here I am. I'm like blended both things that they were interested in. So
there you go. You're perfect. You're the meeting of both of them. Exactly, right?
yes, it's amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
And these tools, it's like what I was telling you when I was a young girl. They would only have this caliber of rendering for the most high-end projects, and I can do this for my clients, for regular places and the commercial spaces. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, no kidding. That's all I have in terms of questions. Is there anything else about what you do for designers that you think I've missed or you'd like to comment on?
I think we've touched on good things. I did have a lot of notes, but I don't know. I think we did well. Let me flip through these pages. Oh, you were asking, say, like, what factors should a small firm consider when deciding between outsourcing and developing it in-house? And we talked about some
Mhm.
specific instances, but one of the things I came up with is, well, how many projects are you needing a rendering for a year? Or are you in the trenches getting said projects done? It was just outsourcing's pretty good choice when you don't want to invest in having, it's like having a meter running and all this rendering capability and you're not using it for a few, for most of the year.
Right.
But it all depends, because once you do have a rendering and you see how it helps your project, you might do more. Like even at one where the client didn't ask, or you might have been able to do okay, you'll say, hey, let's render that up so we could see how this art plays out in this hallway, or how this tile pattern looks. And or if you have a reason to keep feeding, you have projects to give to a junior designer, you'll just maybe think of all kinds of reasons, even social media things, that they can make an environment and showcase something that's happening at your firm. So
there's all sorts of applications that we could be using, not just that final meeting with the client to show them this beautiful picture of what their home is going to look like.
Yeah, I remember when I was starting with the eDesign Tribe, they talked a lot about the shoppable board. You could do those, but have a rendering. You could have the information hotspots where it goes right to your, like, a invoice for the person to buy it, or
Right.
you could have affiliate links, and there's
Yep.
so much. Or you could do, say, like, you design a room and let everybody buy all the things on their
Mhm.
own, or make an online virtual design, e-design.
Right. Okay. All right. So, well, you've sold me. So, if I want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do it?
The best way is through my website, katecookdesign.com, and I respond quickly. And I just enjoy helping and jumping in and being a supporter and a second eye. I mean, I always keep my opinions in check, though, because I'm not the designer. I support I support what your goals are, or what the designer's goals are for their client. And it's really fun collaboration, and it's great. Delegate to Kate, you say.
Delegate to Kate. Perfect. We'll hashtag that.
Yeah. The other ones collaborate with Kate, so there's 2 levels.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to include all of that in the show notes, and we'll even start using those hashtags all the time.
Well, that's it for my interview with interior designer and 3D rendering artist Kate Cook. I hope you learned as much as I did. I asked Kate to spill the tea about 3D renderings because I know a lot of designers who say they want to do 3D renders, but they never get around to it. With the advent of AI and the evolution of virtual reality and augmented reality, fully 3D renderings are only going to become more important to interior designers. If you want to learn a bit more about 3D renderings, I know that Kate will be more than happy to chat with you. You can hook up with her on her website or on Instagram, links in the show notes. And thanks to everyone who listened all the way to the end of this podcast. I truly appreciate that you would spend some of your valuable time with us here at Interior Design Her, and stay tuned for the next podcast episode.